You guys are now we're recording. Okay.
All right, now we ready? Okay. Welcome to episode 5 of Mapping It Out with Ryan and
Coda.
There we go. Okay. So today we have an interesting topic. I was at a friend of mine's event in Dallas this last weekend. His name's Justin Wagner. He has a cool brand called Backbone Swag. And he put together an event for other entrepreneurs and people who are interested in getting the apparel space to kind of come check out his warehouse, see how his operation is set up. He does his own screen printing. And just kind of talk about like what it takes to build things to that level. And he invited me to come out there too. And it was a ton of fun. We had a great time. I think we really helped people kind of figure out what they wanted to do and gave them steps to do it. But there was a few things during that weekend that really became apparent. There's the same questions kept popping up, and everybody had the same kind of tumultuous like feeling of like, what the fuck do I do, and how do I do it? They want to do something, but they really don't know what to do and how to do it. And it's a very kind of lost feeling because you feel like you're alone, even though everyone has that same feeling. Yeah. But it's very common. So there's a couple things that came up that weekend that I wanted to address here, because I think if everyone in that, like the 20 people that were there, if every one of those people is struggling with it, then I know there's people out here that are listening that are struggling with it, because it's personally something that I've struggled with as well. And it really comes down to, what do you want to do? Because everybody wants to have a, quote unquote successful business, but not many people actually think about what does that mean, right? So what does success mean to you? Mm-hmm. I think you really need to start with that, because if you don't define what success is for you, you may end up in a quote unquote successful business that you fucking hate, So for instance, if your goal is to, say you have $1 million business, you're netting $1 million a year, it's fucking awesome, right? It's definitely successful, but you work 12 hours a day, busting your balls. There's no break. If you don't work, money's not coming in, and you don't really enjoy what you do. Is that success? Is you have $1 million company, $1 million profit, and fucking hate your life? Yeah. That to me, that is not success. No. So you really have to define what it is. And for other people, it might be, making $60,000 a year and living on a beach in Costa Rica and having the complete freedom to do whatever they want anytime. That can be success, but both are equally successful and valid. You know what I mean? But they're totally different worlds apart. And the path to get there is completely different for each. So that's why I think before you take the leap into entrepreneurship, no matter what direction, you really have to ask yourself, what is success to me? What do I want my day to look like? What do I want my time to look like? When I wake up in the morning, what do I want to do? And be very specific with like what you want your day to look like. Who do you want to hang out with? What do you want to spend your time doing? Is it impactful? Is it just monetary? Is it like, what parts of it do you think you will enjoy, and what parts do you think you want to hand off and maybe outsource at a certain point? But it all comes down to really just asking yourself, what does success look like to you? Because honestly, I think more people would have a lot better time in entrepreneurship if they ask themselves that first. Because what people do is they'll look at somebody else who's, successful on Instagram and be like, oh, well, this person has this car, this person has this house, this person has whatever. Yeah. But if you're not a house guy, if you're not a car guy, you might get to the point where you get what that person has and be fucking miserable. Mm-hmm. And that's not success. So you can't you're never going to find your own success by chasing somebody else's version of success. You have to find out what that is for yourself, be very open and honest with what you want out of life. Yeah. And like what you're willing to do to get it. Because you can't have massive shit without a massive amount of work. It's just they're incongruent.
I know. I think in the beginning when I first started, you told me, because I asked you this, I was like, this whole topic, what's your perfect day look like? Mm-hmm. And that hit me. I was like, oh, my perfect day. Well, my perfect day is probably not working. And you're like, no. Your other perfect day, like not the actual day by day where you have your own business that you want to run. You make money. How much money do you want to make? Do you want to wake up, go to the beach with your coffee and not have to worry about early morning meetings and whatever it is, What kind of car do you want to drive? Do you want to have just one really dope car? That's it? Or do you want to have like 4 exotics? Like whatever you want, you have to figure that out before you build your business. Build your life before you build your business. Yeah. And it just, I still think about it in the way of like, what do I really want? Because I'm in such a momentum stage right now with my business that sometimes I forget to pause and think about like, where am I actually going with this?
Yeah.
What do I want out of this?
And there's no right and wrong answer either. People get way caught up in that.
I'm just still figuring that out.
Dude, I think we're all still figuring it out. And I think maybe the other part of what we were talking about in that event this weekend that seemed to be very impactful and useful to the rest of the group was the idea of goal setting. And everybody says, goal setting, whatever, and you have your vision board and all this shit. And that's fine and good, but the way that I define it specifically that I found very useful for me is having 2 sets of goals. Number one goal that is so fucking big that you can see it over the horizon. You may never get there. Yeah. It's so far away and so big that you may never actually achieve it. But what it does, I always look at it like you're on the sphere of the earth, and then there's just like water around it, just totally flat land. You can see about 7 miles out. At 6 foot, you can see about 7 miles. So you set a goal that is a fucking huge watchtower that's 3,000 feet tall that you can see from 100 miles away, right? So all that does is provide the direction, because without that particular direction, you could go any other direction and you got 365 degrees to go, and 364 of them are gonna be fucking wrong.
Yeah.
You have to find out what you want to do and the direction that you want to go first, and that ties in with defining success and everything. So for me, that big goal is I want to be able to have a jet, this blacked out jet with middle fingers on the bottom of it and fly over everybody. That's just, I don't know. I don't know why. I had to make up something, right?
I want that now.
Yeah, right. But I had to make up something, and I may never get there. And I may get to the point where I can do that and be like, that's a little childish. Maybe I don't want to do it. Maybe I'll put, wavy hand emojis or whatever it is. It's okay to change it. But either way, if I have that as my long-term goal, that sets the stage, that sets the direction for everything else. Because like, okay, what do I need to do to get a jet like that? Jet like that is probably $20 to $40 million, about $1 million a year to run. You need a crew, stuff. So I need to have, what size does my company need to be to afford that? Around 300 million. Okay, so now I have a very specific goal for my company. What do I need to do to get my company to 300 million? Oh, I need this many employees and this much profit margin and this much annual growth to get there. How long is it going to take me? Okay, let's see, 5 years. But you see how that one goal cascades down into like very definite and specific information on how to grow. Mm-hmm. So I find like the number one thing is set a fucking massive goal that is also tied into what you determine as success, and then work backwards from there. So that's the first part of it. The second part is setting smaller goals in between there, right? So like if I'm looking 7 miles out of the horizon, that's all I can see, and I got a 3,000 foot tall goal way off in the distance that I may never get to, I want to give myself a 7 mile goal. Yeah. I want to give myself like a little tiny thing, or maybe a big thing, whatever it is, but I want to give myself something on the horizon so that I can work to. And then when I get it, I can actually celebrate the win.
Yeah.
Because to get to that point, like say that 3,000 foot high thing is 100 miles out, I want to make sure that every 7 miles I'm giving myself some kind of reward to keep going, because you need fuel to do the entrepreneurship thing. It's fucking extremely taxing. It's stressful. It's going to have a huge amount of impact on your life, some positive, some negative, on your friendships, your relationships. It's going to impact every part of your world, and it's going to take a toll on you. Yeah. And if you don't feed yourself those goals, those small wins to feel like you're achieving and you're moving forward, you'll eventually run out of gas and stop, whether it's 10 miles in or 20 miles in or whatever. So that's why I always find it's really good to have those smaller goals. And also too, the goals can be smaller, but they still have to be challenging. So for instance, when I first got the Lamborghini, I think it was like 2016, that was the only goal I had at the time. I didn't have these big ass goals. That was just my one goal. It's like, I just want to have a Lamborghini. And then when I got it, I was kind of like, well, fuck, what now? And I looked around, and because I'd moved, like say that's my 7 mile goal on the horizon, because I'd reached that point in the horizon, I was able to see things. I was able to see the next 7 miles.
Yeah. And
through the people I met with that car and that contact and those people who were achieving at a much higher level than I had, I was able to see, oh, there's fucking levels to this. There's so many more levels than I even thought. So I was set a goal for the next, 7 miles and then the next. But it wasn't until I achieved that one thing that I realized that how separate that 7-mile goal is from the 100-mile goal. Because in my mind, before I had it, a Lamborghini was just as unachievable as a jet. Like, I just looked at them as they're both impossible.
Yeah.
I'm never going to get them, never going to happen. So I didn't really realize the difference between, a $250,000 car and a $20 million jet. I just classified them both as impossible. But once I achieved that smaller goal, it was still challenging and took me, 12 years to get there. But once I achieved it, it really opened my eyes to, holy shit, there's so much more that I can do. And it really set me on the path of learning, essentially, and meeting other people who are operating at a really high level. And frankly, taking a look at myself and being like, well, shit, I had this goal and that's good, pat myself on the back. I'm happy that I did that. But at the same time, holy shit, man, looking around at the achievements that everybody else is doing, dude, I felt probably smaller than I did before I even achieved that goal, because I realized how big things can get and how much more is out there and how really good some of these guys are who are operating at like a fucking world-class level. So for me, those 2 goal settings, like one huge one just to set the direction, and then smaller, challenging but achievable goals along the way, I found that to be like super useful for me.
Like, to me, yeah, man, like, you have to have those small goals. Because I know a lot of people that they're like, oh, I want to make 6 figures. All right, cool. Break that down for me right now. What's that mean? How many is that a month? How much money is that a week? They don't know because they just, 6 figures sounds cool. Yeah. It's like, okay, but how do you, break it down for me. Yeah. If you want to do it, break it down. They're like, I don't know, what, 8,000? Well, I'm like, yeah. You have to make those small goals so the big goal doesn't look so ginormous. And like, I like what you said, the whole $300 million jet. That's like pinnacle of like what you want, right? If you don't make it, that's fine. You're still shooting for that. But even some people are like shooting for 6 figures, $100,000. Like,
for some people, that's a
3,000-foot
goal.
Exactly.
That's the 100-mile goal.
But I think it's crazy when you really make your pinnacle. I think a majority of people that do this, they're like, oh, I want to make six figures, whatever. They get to 6 figures probably faster than they think. And they're like,
usually do.
Oh, holy shit.
They realize
like, wow, I really fucked up.
They realize it's not that much money.
Yeah. And they get there and they're like, wow, okay. What about $250,000? And then they get there and they're like, okay. Like, I got to reevaluate. I can go way further because I already did that. So it's like, you have to make those small goals. What was the Lamborghini? Like, did you, because that was one of the things that you really wanted, right?
Yeah.
What was it like when you got it compared to like a week later? You're like, okay.
Oh,
like,
man, that was an interesting experience. I'm so glad I did it. But I'm also glad I had it for 2.5 years and I sold it because it was just inconvenient. But I'm really glad I did it. I'm probably going to I'm putting a down payment on another one tomorrow. But we should probably do a whole podcast on like exotics. I have no idea how to buy one. I was like, do you have to have it cash? I always thought you have to pay it cash. And I didn't realize the whole financing game that goes into it. So it's actually like, it's not impossible to, like, you can make really low 6 figures and get a Lamborghini and not have it affect like hardly anything. Like, one employee is more expensive than having one Lamborghini for fucking sure. And we can do a whole podcast on that.
I want to get into that because you made a good point. $3,000 for like that a month, or having an employee to scale a business. Like, it's a great thing.
Which is going to be more than $3,000. So it's there's definitely an interesting dynamic that goes into it. But for me, it was, I grew up with, I was a car guy from the time I was like 8 years old and riding my bike like 5 miles to the Vaughn's grocery store and have like $8.75 in my pocket. And I'd go through all the car magazines and pick out the one that I wanted to like reread. I'd spend like 3 hours there. Wow. And I'd buy that with the only money I had and then ride my bike back. So I've been a car guy my whole life and like pictures of Lamborghinis on the wall. And I always thought, oh, I want a Lamborghini, because that was the only goal I could think of that just, pulling out of the air. And I always thought that, oh, if you have a Lamborghini, you must be rich, must be a millionaire, because you got to pay cash. Because I thought, oh, they cost $250,000. You got to have $250,000 to put down on it, which is stupid way to buy fucking cars for the most part. I mean, there are exceptions, but so when I sold I think my third company, and I had this company was just getting started, so we didn't have any overhead at all. So there was nothing I could put the money into this company to grow because it was just me at the time. So I was like, well, shit, I have, this small chunk of money from the other business. And I was like, maybe I can actually afford one now. So I went in and talked with the dealership, and my buddy Matt Newhouse at La Jolla Lamborghini, just been friends with him for a couple of years. I went in there, I was just to check out the cars and just bullshit, And then I went in, I was wearing cutoff cami pants and I think a Motley Crue t-shirt or something, or Guns N' Roses. And I didn't expect to buy one. I just went in there to kind of talk about the financing.
Was that your first time kind of going in to talk about it, or?
It was my first time going in to talk about the financing of it. But I was I always go in to check them out.
Visualize kind of a visual
and sit in them and get a feel for it.
Yeah.
But once I went in, they're like, well, I mean, everything looks good. What's stopping you from buying one today? I'm like, that's a really good question. I was like, well,
if you don't mind asking, how much was in your bank account in the aspect of I could do it today?
Oh, well, that's the financing thing. I put $50,000 on a credit card. I put $80,000 down total. So I got $280 out the door, $50,000 down on credit card, and then $30,000 down cash. And then because I wanted to pay off the credit card, I wanted the points from that of the new one. So I got double the points. So that saved me $1,000 I got back there. I mean, there's a lot that goes into
it. But it's when you think about it, it's not like what you said, oh, here's $250 cash.
No, it wasn't.
It's crazy.
It wasn't that. No.
Yeah, and that's smart.
But I realized that my other company was picking up and I had the lump cash and I had nothing to spend it on at the time. So I was like, fuck, maybe this is a great time. But the real interesting thing for me was going through that process and actually signing the papers and calling at Disney and being like, hey, can you bring the Jeep down? Because I just bought an SRT Jeep. And she's like, yeah, where are you? What are you doing? I was like, yeah, I'm at the dealership. We're gonna buy a Lamborghini. And she's like, what? I was like, it'll work. It'll work. I swear. Yeah, just bring the car down. So that process was really interesting of just going through the motions of it. But what I found, there's a couple things that happened after that were even more impactful. So number one, I would wait for the first 6 months. I would wake up every day and look out in the driveway and fully expect the car to be repoed. I'm like, oh, I'm not the guy. I can't afford this. They made a mistake. I can't actually afford this. They're going to come back and be like, sorry, sir, towing my fucking car. And I'm like, oh, I knew it. I knew I couldn't afford it. And it took me about 6 months to get to the point where I was like, wow, you know what? I can't afford this. This is the reality. This is how I did it. And it's not outlandish. And it just became a part of my life. And then the second most important thing that happened was I got fucking tired of it. Tired
of the Lamborghini?
Yeah, tired of the car. Because after a certain point, and most people have these types of cars will tell you the same thing. After a certain point, it becomes just a car. And you're like, oh, and then you notice, it's really inconvenient. I can't get over speed bumps very well. I got to scope out driveways. The bumper's $25,000. I don't want to fuck it up. These little things that you think about. And that's why I got the Jeep Trackhawk. And I'm like, well, cool. This is a pretty fun car. I don't have to worry about speed bumps and driveways. So I just parked the Lamborghini in our warehouse and I didn't touch it for 6 weeks. And I'm like, why am I paying $3,000 a month for a car I don't even drive anymore? So then I ended up, there's a couple other reasons that it was a good time to sell it, but I ended up selling it. But through that process, I realized that just because it got to that point where it was just another car for me, the most fun thing about that car became sharing with other people. Became letting my friends drive it, because then it's new for them and that made it fresh for me. So I actually would look forward more to having my friends drive it or letting kids get in it and fucking rev it, because it's something that is sometimes so out of reach that it's almost like seeing a dinosaur or something. When you're not used to it, you're not around it all the time. And for me, that was really refreshing because it reminded me oh, I don't want to take this for granted. This is difficult. This is abnormal. This is, a challenge that I overcame and achieved, and I didn't want to take it for granted. And so for me, sharing it with people became a way to reconnect with that feeling and make it new to me. But those are the two biggest things I learned. Number one, that I had to shift my mindset from a person who, I can't afford this, to a person who's like, I actually I can. Like, this is fine. And then the second part was realizing, okay, I can't take this for granted. What do I really enjoy about this? What's the funnest thing about this whole experience for me? And it was sharing with other people. But that whole process, from the buying to the realization to, you know, the sharing was a hugely transformational piece for me. And I'm so glad I bought the car, because that was a massive part of it. I don't know if I would have been able to fully go through that transformation if I hadn't have learned those lessons for myself. And dude, honestly, I met like some great people from that. It's been an awesome journey.
I have a question for you. Like, for me, I'm making the money I've been wanting to make, right? So part of me, I always get so tossed of like what I want to do. I want to have like that nice place downtown, like, glass walls everywhere, like the view, have like a great car, all this kind of stuff, right? And then I'm like, oh, I can't afford that. I can. Everything that I really want right now, I can't afford it. I can. But then I do the math, and I'm like, okay, well, if I spend this much money on just rent a year, I'm like, I could have put that down payment like for a property. I could Airbnb like a rental property later and like make more money that way. So I'm like in such a weird place where I want to live that lifestyle that like, oh, I'm here, I made it, and I can maintain it. But then it's like, what else do I want to do? Because that's my goals. Like, going back to what we talked about, making those goals. I feel like they're kind of approaching up on me quick, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's like kind of here. Yeah. But now, like, am I doing it too fast? Do I want to take this money I have now and just invest it in, of course, investing right now, the best thing to invest is in yourself every time. But it's just like figuring that out.
There's a couple of things I learned. About half of it was things I learned that I was doing wrong. But you're totally right. There's a difference between being able to buy something and being able to afford it. And being able to buy something doesn't mean you can afford it. It just means you're stretching, you're reaching, and you probably can't afford it, but you want to get it anyway. And I've done that with things in my life before. And it just like, I got what I wanted, but the rest of my life suffered, because I got like, I remember when I was super young, I got like a brand new Toyota Tacoma that I couldn't afford. And it was too much. And we're like, but I fucking wanted it. And then I was living on freaking grilled cheese sandwiches and Pabst Blue Ribbon for fucking, the next year and a half. So that was not a good choice. I should have got, an older one or a shittier car or whatever. So that was an interesting lesson. But I went through that same thing when I bought the Huracan. Was, I know I can buy it, but can I afford it? Is this something that's going to really impact my life a lot? And once I did the math and I realized like, no, it's not too much of a stretch right now. I was like, fuck, all right. And it made me more comfortable doing it. But also you bring up a great point. Another thing that I did not do that I wish I did was invest in assets. So I always invested 100% in myself, my companies, growing, like, that's what I put all my money and resource and efforts into. And it's good, the company's doing well and it might be worth something, but I have no other assets. I don't have any real estate. I don't have any other investments other than what I put into myself and the company. And that's something, at 44 now, I realize that I should have done differently. Like, how old are you now?
26.
Yeah. Dude, I did buy a house when I was 26, but that was like 2007. It was a horrible fucking time to be in a real estate game. It was a terrible time.
No one knew.
Yeah, I was still recovering fucking PTSD from the fucking housing market on there. That's why I haven't bought anything since then. But looking back now, I realize that I should have put more money into assets. I should have developed those, and not for like, maybe not residential, but for me, it makes more sense for us to do like commercial real estate now, especially with the fulfillment operation that we have going. But honestly, like, I'm looking at like California prices are stupid. So even if we can afford stuff, like just really don't want to buy here. So we're going to buy a place in Salt Lake City and then probably just keep renting here because the price is just ridiculous.
Because that's what I'm trying to transition my mind into is saving money. It's like the idea of like making money is so cool, but you really are still broke.
Well, I used to look at it as saving money. Don't save any money. Invest your money.
Exactly. Yeah, and I was listening to Grant Cardone last night about a video like that. He's like, just storing your money, like, it doesn't do shit.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
literally, you're losing money.
You are.
Especially with inflation.
So he's just like, find ways to invest. And of course, everything, a lot of people, real estate. But to like me, I got my real estate license when I was 19. So I'm in that game a little bit, but to me, it's still like, it's always new and I don't know what to do, but it's the same thing. I'm like, okay, like if I was to go get property, it would definitely be somewhere like Arizona, somewhere maybe Vegas.
You should totally do that, because look at like where you're at now and then where I'm at, like 18-year difference. If I had done that when I was your age, I would be in a much better position now. Maybe my businesses wouldn't have grown so fast because I wouldn't have had the capital to do it. But that's maybe like a 15% difference. But I would have had, over 18 years, probably a significant real estate portfolio at that time, which now that I understand the finance game a little bit better, you can leverage those assets to steamroll and grow anything you want so much faster. But I just didn't understand the finance game years ago. And I wish I'd done exactly what you're talking about now is peel some of that money off and like, grow is good, but peel 20% off, peel 15% off, put it into something that's going to be an asset that you can then leverage later to grow faster. And overall, over time, I think that's a faster way to grow anything than just, doing what I did, is dump everything back into yourself and the company. Both can work. Looking back now, I probably would be in further ahead if I'd done that.
Because I want to start investing in assets. Definitely since I'm still in my 20s, that's a huge thing. But I know they always say is like the biggest thing is invest in yourself, acquire more skills.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, they're just like, that's all they're good for is like editing. It's like, no, you can learn how to edit and market. You can learn how to edit and sell. You can, there's so many things you can do, like acquire a whole bunch of value. It's like what Jim Rohn said, like whoever has the most value in the marketplace wins. And it's like, oh shit, it's so true. Like if you can do multiple things at once, people are going to want to work with you and you're going to have a lot more income because people are going to you're not just like one-stop shop.
Well, also understanding the financing game now, looking back, like, so the Lamborghini that I'm going to buy, it's actually an investment. Like that car is going to make me money. Part of that is because of the current situation that we're in with retail prices and used car prices. But understanding the finance game now, I realize like it's not going to cost me any money. It's going to cost me a little bit out of pocket. But when I go and sell that car, I'll make $50,000 to $80,000 on the car. But without understanding the finance game, I wouldn't know how to do that. Ryan Stewman has some really good insight on that. He does it all the time. He's flipped like I think 18.
I was gonna say like I think you just posted something yesterday. About like all the shit. Like
dude, it's really good. Yeah, and then the exotic car hacks on Instagram has some really good insight too. He's PJ is 100% legit, and he's right about all this stuff, because when you buy, we should honestly do a whole podcast
I think
about
next week we'll do that, because there's a lot of things that can connect back into that. So I think we definitely should.
Because ultimately it's not about the car, it's about, that was just my version of success, that was my milestone, but how you achieve that and what you do in like the technical aspects of it, if success to you is a car like that, it'll be super useful. But even if that's not a version of success to you, you can still apply those metrics and those takeaways and the tactics used to do that to pretty much any other asset or any other thing that you want to buy that maybe seems a little out of reach.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, I think that's good, dude.
Yeah,
I think we stayed on topic a little better than we usually do.
We go on a rant. And what is it, 30 minutes? So that's a good one.
I'm going to try to get Disney to get on these before, because she was listening to us last time. She's like, man, you guys really go off track. I'm like, that's part of the flavor. It's part of the joy.
Yeah. Some people not want the one topic. They want more. But I get it.
She's got a good point, though.
It's a practice, though.
Yeah. I know I could use some corralling sometimes because I go off on too many tangents, but I'm going to try to get her to get in on maybe the next podcast.
Yeah.
And she really has a deep knowledge and experience of her role and how she came up with the company.
Disney?
Oh, it's my wife.
Okay. What, CEO?
Yeah. She was a COO for a long time, and now she's the CEO.
Nice. All right, cool. Yeah, Disney's awesome.
She's really good, man. She's a killer, dude. We sometimes will like good cop, bad cop, and like she's the bad cop. Like I'm the good cop. It's got to be like, oh no, it's cool. Like, she's like, no, fuck this. Is this way? I'm like, dang, honey. All right. Yeah, she's a killer, man. But knowing when to be a killer and when to be a softie, I think is an asset too.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully we'll get her on the next one. If you guys got some value out of this, like, subscribe, screenshot it, share it on Instagram, tell people about it, and tell us like what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, any other topics or things that you want us to discuss and bring to light, or just have a good conversation. This is what we're doing it for. It's for us to learn, and also through that process, share it with you guys. So let us know what you guys want to hear.
Mm-hmm. We don't have all the answers, especially me. I'm still learning, and Ryan always says he's always still learning. He's been always in business for a long time. So
I don't have all the answers. I just have a lot of mistakes that I made.
So if you guys are new to entrepreneurship, subscribe.
There we go. All right. Thanks, guys. Shake and bake.
Shake and bake.